All right, guys, welcome back to the Strike Twice podcast. I think this is episode 11.
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's 11.
I think we're on number 11. We should have checked that before we started. But we're here. We've been talking for 30 minutes. Should have figured that out, but we're here. We think we're going to bust this episode into two parts. We just think it's going to be a long one for one episode. So I think it's going to be a two-part episode. First part, we're going to talk about the Barkley Marathons and what historical events occurred last week. And then we're going to dissect the 4x4x48 that I ran last week. So we got a full hot order of running stories. So Trey, Ray, how's it going?
Good. I did a little Easter run today. It's Easter today when we're recording. It was super little because it was windy and chilly this morning. So I kind of changed my plan mid-run where I was like, you know what? I did five and I'm calling it. But it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm feeling it's feeling good. Yeah, I've been able to get out and dedicate some more time to training and like I was saying, got been up to 3 or 4 days a week, getting some run or at least some form of that in, which has been great. My lower back is like, hey, remember why we stopped doing this? And I'm like, it's fine. So I'm just going through all those when you're getting back in shape, all those things you don't think about when you're running because you're like, man, my legs are gonna be sore. And then you wake up and you're like, why do my arms hurt? Like, why are my shoulders sore? So it's been pretty funny. Just to see how that feels in comparison to all those years. Like in college, like felt like it happened overnight. Like we trained for 1 week and I was like, yeah, we're back. We're feeling good. Everything's solid. And now I'm like, I think it's gonna be more like a couple of months at this at this point. But yeah, it's been great. The weather's been fantastic down here. It's gonna be over 70 like 2 times this week
Thanks.
coming up. So, but yeah, good to be back. I know we were all traveling and running around and had to miss a week, but excited to be back and get this two-parter going. I think it's going to be a two-parter too.
I feel like every night can be a two-parter, to be honest. That's the way we talk.
That's true. That's true. Especially because we probably only record 75% of what we talk about because we talk for a half an hour before and after usually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's probably where all the good information is. You guys are just getting the edited information in the middle. So, um, but the first thing I wanted to do was give a little product shout out. I bought a headlamp from Black Diamond like 2 years ago. It was one of their Storm models. Pretty good, great reviews. That's why I bought it. But the power button just never worked. So I've been just dealing with it for 2 years. And during the 4x4x48, I was like, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. So I sent Black Diamond an email. I said, this headlamp hasn't been working right ever since I got it. I'd like to send it in and get it fixed or whatever. It was a Sunday, by the way. Within 7 minutes, they replied and said, we have a new one in a box. It's going to your place right now. And within like 3, 4 days, I got a brand new replacement. And guess what? It works.
Yeah.
So that just shows the customer service the Black Diamond has. So I kind of wanted to give a shout out to them. No, we're not sponsored by anybody or anyone, but I just wanted to say good products, good customer service. And so thank you to Black Diamond for sending me a new headlamp. And now I can see at night, which is kind of important when you're running at midnight, 4 a.m. So that's my product shout out. Do you have any products that you guys are using right now that you'd like to shout out or anything? Don't want to put you on the spot, but
No, I mean, talk about the beer I'm drinking. But it had nothing to do with running.
hey,
Uh,
product, we
beer
can
has
shout that out.
beer has a
Yeah.
lot beer has a lot to do with running, Ray. A lot of people
Well,
run just for the beer. All right, so
okay, it's my bad. I'll take that back. After the run, I could never do like a beer mile or anything. I think that'd be So hard.
No, I think it'd be coming up pretty quick. I'd get
For
about 10
me,
feet from the line and it would be game on. But
yeah.
um, yeah, Hunter, I use a black diamond headlamp, but I have like it's like a trail model. I can't remember what the actual model is, but it's the retractable.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a just that headlamp piece, and then there's a small piece on the back, and you just pull it out, and it's just retractable, which is great because then it just when it's on, it just automatically adjusts and stays, and then when it's off, when you pull it off and it automatically retracts, it fits into my running pack, my bag, just into like the into the chest pocket, super easy because it doesn't have the full strap on there. So um, I like that one just for that reason because it's just um, I'm not getting it caught on everything when I'm trying to get it in and out of my bag. But yeah, that one's pretty sweet. I've had that one for like probably 10 years, probably 10 years at this point, and it's still kicking. So that one's done me good for a while.
Nice. Yeah, I've always liked Black Diamond products in general. Like I said, I think it just the first one I got was a dud. Whatever. I'm pretty sure it came and didn't really work that well. So nothing that they did wrong. I'm sure it just happens once in a while. But yeah, really appreciate their customer service and getting back to me on a Sunday even. I mean, that was shocking to me, but definitely appreciate that. So we're not that. I guess we can count that as our warm up lap. But our original idea was to have the Barkley Marathons be our warm up lap. But just like the Barkley Marathons in general, it's not just a warm up lap and it's not just a marathon. It's the Barkley Marathons, and we have to basically make it one whole episode. So let's get into it. We got a ton of information. Trey's going to talk about the marathon in general, a little bit of its history, things like that. I'll talk about some of the finishers from the long history of the Barclays, and then Ray's going to talk about the historical finish that occurred last week, and I can't wait to hear all about that because she's kind of somebody that I wasn't super familiar with. So I'm excited to learn more about that. So Trey, do you want to just jump right in and kind of get us started on the Barclays?
Yeah. So as far as the Barclays go, like I remember seeing that race. I found the original kind of documentary video that they made on YouTube that they had posted however many years ago. I mean, just maybe it was when we were in college or late in high school, um, but had found it, and I was like obsessed with that. Every piece of information I could find about it, just because it's just kind of so secret in a lot of ways. Like it's just you don't know a lot about it, and nobody really does. But um, I've since watched all of the clips that they've put out, any of the documentaries and stuff they put out about it. Some runners have made their own. Um, and I think was it Gary Robbins,
Yep.
and he's made some really quality ones too. Um, but there, yeah, if if you're listening to this and you haven't watched anything about the Barclays after this episode, go to YouTube and watch. There's two or three on there that are kind of full length ones that are freaking amazing. They're insane. But as far as the race goes itself, like the history, so I just have it in my notes because there was too much to even try and memorize. But
Yeah.
we actually started. This is something I didn't really know about all that much, but James Earl Ray, the guy that assassinated MLK, was in prison in Tennessee and escaped. And there was like a 2 day manhunt. And after the whole like 2 days, he had made it like 8 miles because the terrain out there is just supposed to be so unbelievably difficult to navigate and unforgiving. And so Gary Cantrell is the guy that started the race, and this was in like '77 when this happened. And I think the words exactly were that he was unimpressed or uninspired by the mileage he only got 8 miles away, and he said, "Yeah, I bet I could make it 100 miles in those 2 days away from the prison," and that was kind of what started it. And so those next from 77 for like the next like 8 or 9 years, he was kind of morphing this into what it became, and um, eventually designated a 20-mile loop. Um, and it's 5 laps and 5 20-mile laps. But anyone who's ever competed in it says um, that you get so lost and so turned around and spend so much time going all the way around things and trying to get through certain things that the laps are realistically 4 to 5 miles longer. So they say it's realistic to say it's 120 to 130-mile race by the time it's all said and done. But so leading up to that, 1986 was the first official running of the Barkley, and it's it's still cracks me up, and I love how popular it is, and how little has changed. So the application process is still insane. There's not an official race website, so there's kind of not really a lot of guidelines on what the hell to do. Like most people just don't know, don't even apply because they don't know what to do. And even that, reading a lot about it, there's stuff that I was looking at, and people are writing these articles, and they're like, even in my research for this article, I couldn't quite figure out how to apply for it. It's like, so it is pretty crazy. So it's said to be one of the best kept secrets in the race world, and so they, because of how intense it is and how like dangerous it can be, honestly, because it's unbelievably like unforgiving, and there is no navigation, there's no GPS, there's no map, there's no, and uh, so it's capped around 40-ish people. That's men, women, and international. Usually they have a handful of slots reserved for international, and then a handful for returners. If you complete at least one lap, um, you you have a little bit better chance, I believe. It used to be an automatic bid to come back, but I don't know if it is anymore because it's capped now. Um, but essentially, once you find the way to apply, you write your essay and your application, and you mail it in with your non-refundable fee of $1.60. And then if you do get accepted, there's no announcement, there's no race announcement, and no list drop like other big races. You get a letter in the mail from Gary Cantrell, and it is a letter of condolences, and to let you know that you got in. And I'm like, that's fantastic. So um, I love that. I think it's hilarious. Once you've received the letter of condolences and you have the race information and when you need to be there, um, the racers will show up. The day of it starts. The race starts between midnight and noon. So there's a 12-hour stretch, and he won't tell you when the race starts. And so he will come out with his like conch shell and blow the horn, and that lets you know you have 60 minutes to get to 60 minutes to the start line, and that the race has started at basically every hour between midnight and noon since it started running, because they've had so many occurrences of it now, so many times that they've run it. So that's all the notice that you get. So sometimes you're taking a nap and it's a stupid hour. Sometimes you just got done checking in and he blows it right away, and we start in an hour, and everybody's like unpacking, getting their kind of their tent set up and getting their stuff ready. So it's crazy, which that alone, ultra running in itself is such a mental game. I feel like you prepare so much for what you think is going to happen. When you go to the Barkley, it is well known that you are going to have no idea what's going on. So there's no way to like really prepare for it. In a lot of those ways that people like to train and prepare for big races like that. So
Yeah,
that gets
I think when you're running something like that, most races they have every minute of the hour planned for 3 days leading up to it. And when you don't know when the start time is, you know how like messed up that can be, and you basically have to go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the afternoon the night before to try to get some sleep between then and midnight because you just have no idea. Like I can't imagine for meticulous planners, it's got to be just hell.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Well, and so you're there, you're getting your stuff set up, you are probably talking yourself out of this race and 100 times over, you're in your head. When you register, when you're doing your registration and you show up, if you are a first timer, you have to bring a license plate from your state, and then there's also Gary also always has like a pick. He has like an item that you have to bring, and so like 40 people show up with like a pair of socks. It's like a pair of like $1.99 like Walmart socks, and give him a pair of socks, and that's like part of the entry fee. And then like or like there's been years in the past where it was a white button-up shirt. And it's just and he just has his watch, and once they get to the line and that's all said and done, they're getting ready to start the race, and everybody's expecting him to blow the conch shell or shoot a gun or something to start this race, and the start of the race is him lighting a cigarette. So he puts his cigarette in and he lights his cigarette, and that's the go, and he starts his watch. So uh it's kind of the it's kind of the most insane lead up and execution of of an ultra. And then you think that's the craziest part, and then you hear these interviews of people that have run it, and once you get out on the course, they're like, it's insane. Like you can't prepare for something like that. So essentially the loop is 20 miles, and it's a 5 loop race. The first two are run clockwise, second two counterclockwise, and then the last one you get to choose how you want to run it. And now everybody, usually you would want to, usually people that make it that far have said in the past that they stick with the same direction, like the counterclockwise, because it gets quite a bit darker by that point. If the race started in the time that in that time frame, so you could be a little bit lighter, could be a little bit darker, but you want it to be as fresh in your brain running that side or running that direction, because when it does get dark, it's almost impossible to navigate because you're navigating this in the dark. You got a headlamp, and you can have like you can have like just a regular watch, but you can't have any GPS or info or anything like that. And the way that he knows that you did your loop, he has books hidden throughout the loops, at checkpoints throughout the loop with gallons of water. It's like gallons of water at the station, and then a book in a plastic bag. And your bib number, you open the book and you rip out the page. You rip out the page that matches your bib number. So every loop, your number is going to change, and the number of the page of the book that you got to rip out is going to change. So that kind of just adds a little bit of craziness to it too, because you see these guys and gals coming across the line just like dead to the world, and he's sitting there like they just hand him this crumpled mess of pages, and he's there like checking all these pages, making sure that it's all the right book, all the right pages, and the numbers and everything. And then he's like, okay, have fun. Sends them on their way to the next lap. And it's like that. I would imagine that 30 seconds of sitting there, you're in the parking lot, your crew is there, they've got food for you, you got a fresh pair of socks, you probably switched your shoes, you reloaded on your gear for going out, and you sit down, and he's verified your pages, and then you have to talk yourself into getting up and going and doing another one of those absolute hell on earth loops. And it's like that, it's just crazy to me, how the race has progressed and what it does, because that style, that like running it in that way, it's not going to matter how advanced someone is in running or how, it's going to eat you up one way or another, mentally or physically or both. Like it's just going to eat you alive. And I just love it. I have so much respect for that race just for what it does. Like I just think it's hilarious. But they also reserve bib number one. Bib number one is they I think they call that the sacrifice. That is the bib that is reserved for a person who Gary admittedly says has no right being on the course and is least likely to finish by far, least likely to finish according to the application process. So they reserve it. So one is kind of this like cool coveted bib in the way that it's got a lot of history and a cool connotation to it in some ways. And it's also you're wearing it and realizing, damn, I have no business being out here. So it's I don't know. It's just I feel like no matter what you do, it's one of those races that you're gonna have to be so in the moment and probably have to return to it several times to get any amount of running done. Because the first couple of times you're probably just stumbling through the woods trying to figure out where the hell you are. Um, so that that is one of those things that I look at and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I would love to go see it, but they're really strict about spectators. They don't really have spectators either. It's kind of just the crew and the few spectators that are there. Are kind of condensed to just the parking lot of the park. It is run, so it's run at Frozen Head State Park. So there is kind of like a little parking lot area that they set up. Um, and so it's got one of those, the state park gates, like the yellow swing arm gates that block the road. It's got one of those, and that's at the end of every lap. Runners have to tap the gate and verify their pages, and that's how they do that. And the most recent, what I had seen, it was 60 hours to complete for the cutoff. But yeah, that I mean, for a guy to just be like living in Tennessee and an escaped convict only makes it 8 miles from the prison, he's like, that was weak as hell. He's like, I feel like I could get 100. and then it and then 9 years later it becomes a race, if you can call it that. Like I don't even know if whatever it is, and then it just becomes this like monster of a race in so many ways. Like in the following that it has, it's an absolute monster. The actual execution of it is an absolute monster. So it's I don't know. It just cracks me up, and I love reading about it because you're going to read the same article on 6 different websites because everyone has access to the same information, and it's that little, and it's like so little information that everybody essentially writes the same article because there's no other thing to write about. So when I was at Run Club this last week, and they had two a magazine and a book about the Barkley out on the table and everything. So it's every this time of the year, I think every runner is always got their ear to the ground, just waiting for the results and seeing how everything went. So it was pretty cool to get to read up on that and see how everything kind of went down. And but I think that kind of moves us over to Ray talking about some of the finishers now. So after that whole setup and all that insanity of that, and I'm sure I'm forgetting 90% of the stuff you can't even read about it. So of all that lead up and all that craziness to get to it, then some people actually have finished it. So I think Ray's tackled a few of those and got some info on that. So I'll toss it over to you unless you guys got any questions on that first, on the history and stuff.
Well, there's something I was going to say that the very end that you mentioned. I was trying to explain what the Barkley Marathons was to my mom earlier today. So yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, and she's like, so is it a marathon? I was like, well, no. I'm like, it's a like a loop essentially, non-runner. So I'm trying to put it in those terms. I'm like, but I don't think it's actually like 26 miles. Like, and she's like, oh, so then what do they do? I'm like, well, I think you do it a few times. She's like, so it's not a marathon. I'm like, no. Like, but it goes past the marathon. Like, it was so confusing to like for me to explain to someone who has like no idea what I'm talking about. And as I mean, like as you're talking about it, I was like, yeah, like it's so to me, and like it's this sense of adventure that I think is so like addictive for us. I don't know, don't speak with you, but like that's why I think it's amazing. That just makes me laugh when you try to explain what the Barkley Marathon is to someone. It's a process.
Yeah, it's they ask a simple question and it's like, let me have an hour of your time, please sit. And it's like,
Yeah.
so the craziest part about that too is that I think is hilarious is that it's a lot of people ask that, what is the Barkley Marathon? I'm like, no, it's the Barkley Marathons. There's an
Yeah.
S. And that was and I think a big part of that actually was like I think in an interview he had talked about it, and I might be wrong, but that it was kind of before ultra running was really recognized in a lot of ways. I mean, definitely not a scene like it is now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so instead of calling it the Barkley Ultra, uh, it's marathons with an S because it's just several of them stacked on top of each other, and that was kind of the whole gig. And Barkley came from actually his neighbor, Gary Cantrell's neighbor, was Barry Barkley, and it's Barkley Marathons, and even the article that I was there was two or three of them that I was reading, and they all had the same answer, and it was that they believe it's named after his neighbor, who was Barry Barkley, and all of them said it is unclear why, and that that's as far as they got. So it's crazy. I mean, it's that thing where yeah, when somebody asks you, it's like, well, we might as well order a beer or something because we're going to be here for a minute. This is the whole thing. So it's pretty mind blowing, and I would like to see it in person sometime for sure. So
Yeah, like you said, I don't know if that's something that I would love to run, but just to be a fly on the wall for something like that would be crazy. I mean, there's such a cult following behind it, and um, I can't remember which is by Gary Robbins. I think it's Where Dreams Go to Die. I think that's the one that he does, and
mhm,
then the official one I think from like a documentary crew was The Race That Eats Its Young. So I think
mhm,
that perfectly describes just how lovely and charming that race is. But I mean, when the first 5 minutes of the documentaries is just horror stories and horror scary music, and it's like this is supposed to be like a race, like it's got this weird vibe to it, but it's just such a interesting thing. And we've talked about ways to cheat, or not ways to cheat, but potential ways to cheat in races. And you think about something like this, and it is literally impossible to cheat in this race because, as Trey was talking about with the page numbers from the book, there's however many different random books. Every book is different. Every year the books are different. So the first lap you go through, let's say your bib number 13, you get 13 out of however many books, page 13. Come back, give them, and then you get a new bib number. So then it's not like so then you have to go get a whole new set that you don't know about. So there's no way to cheat. There's no timing system. There's no set time for the start. Um, you talked about the low cost. Like this race was created in the 70s and 80s. It was conceived in the 70s, started in the 80s,
yeah,
and it stayed there. It it
100%.
never left. And I think you talked about the first timers, they bring an item and a license plate. And I think I saw the returners have to bring a pack of Camel Smokes. I think that's
There's usually something attached to it. Yeah, either cigarettes or something, and the returners do, and he always pulls one of the packs and pulls a cigarette, and that's how he starts the race.
yeah, it's just crazy. And you talked about it was at Frozen Head State Park in Tennessee in March. So the one of the biggest challenges of why they talked about um, the escaped convict. What was his name?
It
James
was
Earl Ray.
James Earl Ray. Yeah.
he only made it 8 miles because it's March in Tennessee. He probably got rained on. He probably got snowed on. He probably got sunshine. So that's why they you talked about the water stops. They got gallons of water set out some places. Some years they're frozen solid. Uh, so like that is such a huge variable for that race is you'll get rain, sleet, snow, hail, sunshine. You'll get all of it. So that's and then you talk about the elevation and I think when you add it up, it's like going up and down Mount Everest 2 or 3 times, something like
So
that.
yeah, that's the estimate is that because of the loops and then how often people get turned around and how just how messed up it is, the average finisher is like 60,000 feet of elevation gain, which is Everest twice, up and down. I was like, that's ridiculous. That's insane.
Yeah.
Yep. All you get is you get an analog watch and
Yep.
you get a compass and you get a crappy map and that's it. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So earlier when I was saying, that there's no map, you get a compass with a map to find your points to do the actual loop, but there's no course map in that like when you get registered for a race and they send you all of your information, that's what I meant by that. There's no map. They don't give you a course map. And it's like, go ahead and prepare, so there's none of that. It just doesn't exist. So you get yeah, you got and that's the other thing too, is that you get out there and the weather's shitty and you're trying to keep all your stuff dry and it's like, yeah, it is the most unpredictable and unforgiving race and environment I think that's probably out there.
For sure. It seems like it's just meant for people to fail, which I absolutely love that.
I think Gary Cantrell or Lazarus Lake as his nickname is.
Uh,
He that's why he loves it too, is because he just loves to see people in the pain cave and pushing their bodies to limits. And I think he secretly gets a little enjoyment when somebody drops out and they have to play taps for him. I think he gets a little bit of joy out of that, which is a little bit wicked, but I mean, it's just the whole aura of the race. It is kind of designed for you to fail a little bit, honestly.
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's That's why I want to see it so bad. That's why I want to be there and see it so bad.
Well, yeah, can you imagine if you were there the year that Gary Robbins came in just barely over the 60 hours? He had all the pages, but he got turned around and came all the way back the other way and came in the wrong direction. And so he was over the time limit and he came in the wrong direction. So he wouldn't have counted either way. But he missed it, by seconds.
7 seconds. It was seven
Yeah.
seconds.
7 seconds. A 60-hour race, he missed tapping that gate by 6 seconds. Can you imagine? I bet you could hear a pin drop at that moment.
Yeah. So defeating.
I think he took like 6 months off and did not run for a very long time after that, just because it was so just defeating, I think, for him.
I think I would too. I think I'd take some time. I think I'd take some me time after that one.
Yeah, I think if I was him, I'd still be taking time off. But yeah, he was crazy enough to go back. He's never finished, and he's among the many people who have tried, which kind of jumps us into the people who have finished. I got some information on that. Ray's got the information on Jasmine, so
That's right.
we'll get to Ray's section here in a minute. But um, there's been about 40 people every year, and so in 1986 they started the race, but apparently from my research it was a slightly shorter version. It was like a 55 miler, and then in 1989 they went to the full 5 20-mile loops. So, um, but either way, since the full course was created in 1989, there's been 26 finishers out of 1,500 approximately, which is only about a 1.7% completion rate, which is definitely the worst of any race that I've ever heard of. Like that is horrendous um finishing stats. So that right there just tells you how difficult that race is. So like ju any thoughts on that only one less than 2% are finishing this race?
It kind of just proves like what we're saying now. It's like it's meant to like for people to fail. You know, if that's your success rate going into it is less than 2%, that's remarkable. So
I
like
think,
intimidating too. Imagine that.
yeah, yeah, that's a tough one to sleep on. That number probably floats around in some people's head, but I think it also helps the race. I mean, I think that's what made the race as popular as it is now, and now it has this insane cult following, insane following. Um, but when somebody that's willing to put their body through a 100-mile race sees that this one only 1.5% of people get through it, less than 2% of the people get through it, a lot of runners are going to be like, all right, I want to get going on that. Like, I want to go check that out. And I want to, so I think, I think that's, crazy too, to think about that the most demoralizing and, kind of indicative stat of what the race actually is the thing that actually drives the following and drives the people that, to keep bringing people back. So it's funny the way that it works like that, but I think it almost is a good thing for that race. But
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever that movie is, and it's like, oh, 1 in a million chance. It's like, so you're saying there's a chance, kind of
yeah,
thing. I forget what movie that is, but
that's in Dumb and Dumber. That's
As Dumb
yeah,
and Dumber, yeah.
yes,
So you're saying I have a chance.
girl like me and a guy like you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, and we're talking about this 1.7% success rate, which must make us optimists because probably normal people would look at that and say, that's a 98.3% fail rate. So that must just be the adventurer in us and the runner in us that we're looking at this from, oh, there's a chance. But the
There's
vast majority of people are looking at this and saying, 98% of people fail. What are you even doing? So that's the two sides of that coin there. It's just crazy when you start looking at the numbers. Since 1989, you only had finishers in 1995, 01, 03, 04, 08, 09, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. There was a pretty good stretch there. And then 16, 17, and then not till 2023, and then this year. And this year had the most finishers. It was four, or was it five this year that finished? I
I
think it
thought it
was
was
five.
four.
Four. Um, which
Could be
is
wrong.
crazy. So, out of all those years, 15 times out of 36 years. So again, way less than half of the years that they've ran it, they have had a finisher. So the majority of years they have not had a finisher, which is just crazy. And like I said, around 1,500, if they stood true to having only about 40 people a year, it's about 1,500 who have ran that race. Mark Williams was the first ever who finished the full course. Brett Mon was the first two-time finisher. He finished in 2011, 2012. John Kelly's kind of a household name there. He is now a four-time finisher after this year, which is just wild for one to be able to do that, and two, again, I don't know why you would want to come back to that and do that again to yourself. But he's a four-time finisher, so he's kind of a household name there. Another household name is Frozen Ed. Ed Furtaw. He was the first finisher of the original course. So he's always there, whether he's running it or just helping out. He's been there every year, I believe. The only year that they did not run the Barkley since 1986 ish was 2020 during the pandemic. So other than that, they've ran the race. Um, And big finishers from this year, as I mentioned, um, John Kelly became a four-time finisher this year. And the bread and butter of this episode is that Jasmine Paris, um, she is the first and only female finisher ever of the Barkley Marathons. I think a few have finished 4 laps, but none have ever finished the full course. So Jasmine Paris is making history. She's a runner from Great Britain, and Ray's going to tell us all about Jasmine. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Ray. Tell us all about her.
Yeah, well, what you just said, she was actually the second woman to ever finish it, the fourth lap
Oh,
last year.
gotcha.
So this is the third year she's done it. And the first year she did it, it was considered a fun run because she did 3 loops. And that was like the first time in 9 years in 2022. And then, yeah, 2023, she ran it again, did the fourth loop. And then, yeah, this year she finished it with like 90 seconds left to go, too, only. I don't know if you saw that, but that is just imagine that. Like, I can read, like, she was kind of talking about like that last like 8 minutes of her, that final lap, what was going in her head. And I can't imagine being in her mind. But no, something you said earlier, Trey, or maybe it was you, Hunter, but because like who is Jasmine Paris? Like it's almost like a name that, it's not like I guess I wouldn't say it's a household name for me anyway, so I could be totally wrong. But since I've just been kind of reading up on her the past few days, she's has like some insane accomplishments from like there's the spine race in Britain. It's like a 268-mile race. She did that 2019, just beat the record by 12 hours. Like just yeah. Like I mean, she's done like insane. She did like the first time she did the UTMB, she took sixth. There's some she's like a two-time British fellow running championship run, like she won that twice. All these really big in Britain. I guess I'll kind of sum that up first. That's kind of like where she's from. She's from Edinburgh, Scotland. Um, but yeah, like as I was just going through it, there's this interesting, like there's this trio of 24-hour mountain challenges in Scotland. Well, there's Wales, Scotland, and England. And when she did that, she won each one the same year, like just this phenomenal runner. I think the beauty of it too, like when you kind of start learning about her, she just seems so like laid back and just she's a small animal vet during the day. Like, and then like there's this interview I read where she's like, I don't really have a set training plan, she says. Like she doesn't have a coach. She just kind of, yeah, like I mean, she runs every day. She has like a 60 minute to 90 minute run every day, pretty much. And that's it. Like she actually says like she trains what most people consider like very little for like most runners. Like most would think she should be doing much, much more, but she does not. And I just absolutely love that. But yeah, I think the coolest thing too for me, anyways, because we were just kind of well before this, we were talking about our diet and whatnot, running for long, long distances. She says how cake is part of her diet. Like when it comes to this type of stuff, like cake is a must. And then she does not pass up on a glass of wine here and there. But yeah, like just an absolute beast of a runner. Like I would say she kind of started 2015, 2016 in Britain, where she kind of got on the map. That spine race one I was talking about was like the first time she kind of became like international news in 2019. And then this is the third year she's on the Barkley marathons. And yeah, she won it this year, which is insane. But I was going to read a little bit of, but I mean, maybe where you guys know about these things, but just in general, like you hear about runners doing these long distances, like, 100 plus mile ones, and they talk about the hallucinations they have in like the middle of the night or something, like just really weird things they see. She was going like about this year, how the trees were like turning into animals as she was running. Just, and I can't, like, she's like, I would literally think one's like a mountain lion or like a dog. And just, I was thinking about like, imagine that in the middle of the night coming up by yourself pretty much in that circumstance. And you don't really know what it is until you're passing it.
Mm.
That would be just insane to be in that state of mind. I I don't know. I don't know if I've ever been in that state of mind. I don't know if I really want to be honest. But like one of them is like pigs. She's like, there's this pigs lying down on the ground. Like that's what she was seeing. And then again, as she was passing it, she realized it was just a tree or a bush. But
Well,
yeah,
for one, just being in the darkness alone with a clear mind can do that to you. But imagine
yeah,
being in the dark while hallucinating. Like that's probably just even worse. So that's probably why the pigs were seeming quite realistic, is because she was probably in the dark too, I would guess. But I mean, that's just yeah. The night running thing, especially when you're not on a trail, would be pretty to put it lightly, pretty fucky, I would say. That's
Well, and then you got to think about like how long has she been in? Like at that point, it's like your body and your brain are pushed so far past the limit. It's like, how do you even rationalize? Like, how do you even bring yourself back down and rationalize with yourself when you're that far gone, physically and mentally? Like, getting it all back together would just be a nightmare. Yeah, no thanks.
yeah. It's almost like again, like what we're just kind of saying, like people are like 98%, we think of this as like, why would you put yourself in this position? But then there's like you might see us where it's kind of like, yeah, but imagine being in that position at the same time. Like that would be cool, as in torture might just sound complete torture, but it would be to be in those shoes, that would be awesome.
Well, that's like they found some documents or something. It was like the treadmill. It was like the original like form of the treadmill, like the wood slats on like a gear almost, and it was a torture device of like it just kept going, and it was used as a torture device, and now we're like, oh yeah, let me go get my $160 pair of running shoes so I can go put myself through this. Like I'm paying money to go torture myself, but
Yeah.
it's all right.
But yeah, I think the coolest thing that I was reading about, anyways, about this specific race, she was saying that she felt like total confident for a bit, the entire time she was out there until like the last 8 minutes is when she started doubting herself. And again, so it's like put that in your mind, like you're 51 hours out there, and then you're like, I'm not going to be able to finish this because I don't know if I guess I don't really know if she knows where her time is. Does she know where her time is, or can she have anything on her at that?
Yeah, I think you have just like an analog watch, like just or I mean, just like, just like a Timex, so you'd be able to see that you're at like
At
59 hours and some change or whatever, but
Yeah,
I don't know how much sense it would make at that point either, because those watches can only do so much, so I feel like at that point you might know how much time has gone by, but I don't know how much that information is going to help you at that point. I don't know
yeah,
how much it actually does for you, but I
yeah,
guess that's part of the allure. That's part of the.
yeah. Yeah, no, she goes on to say though how like so there's 8 minutes when she's starting to doubt herself. She puts it like out. She was so desperate to stop, but in her mind, she's like, if you don't make this, you have to do it all over again. And it's like, yeah, if this is her third year in a row, she's attempted this and she's that close. And then yeah, she finished it with 90, I think it was 99 seconds or 98 seconds to under the cutoff and just basically collapsed and couldn't breathe for like 5 minutes. But yeah, no, I mean, she's an interesting one to look into for just kind of just starting someone. What it sounds like when I was reading, someone just mentioned like, oh yeah, she should try a fail. I don't know. I don't know if it's just a Scottish thing, but it's fail running. It sounds like it's just mountain running, not maybe the same as trail running, but it's some type of running in Scotland. But someone back in like 2008 or something said you should try a race, and she was hooked. And look at her now; she's just dominating.
Making history. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm happy that a finally they they have a female finisher that came in and just kind of like kicked ass, like really just kind of came in and kicked ass and took names. But I'm also really stoked that the race is as big and followed as it is now, um, so that these people that do get through it and the people that do actually like struggle and just live in that hell on earth for 60 hours, like um it's cool to see them get a little bit of a shout out and some recognition in that. All right, as a consolation prize for this absolute shit show, here's
Yeah.
here's at least two sentences in Runner's World, or something like that. That's like, all right, it was all worth it. It was all worth it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, she seems like a very like just very laid back gal, like at day-to-day life, but she's just I don't know, just tackles these immense challenges. And I think that's kind of like what we all runners love to have and do, and what inspires us all to keep doing it. And she proved that by what she just accomplished, because that is like Hunter was just saying, I think that's another thing too. I was going to say, what I love about these marathons is how we have the years where nobody finishes. Like that's just, again, to show how incredible this race is. Or I don't know if you when I use the word incredible, but it's one of a kind. And here she is, just destroyed it. Hats out there.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's funny to see um very rarely, especially when you listen to our other episodes and see how, oh, we'll be on for a quick 30 minutes, and another 30 minutes later we're like, damn, we're still going. So I think for all three of us to be, struggling with words at some parts of this episode should show you, and of watching and listening to past episodes, we haven't ever struggled to find our words about a lot of things, but you can tell like it's affecting us in this episode. Just trying, sometimes you're trying to find the words for the race and to describe the whole thing, because it's just so much more than a race, and it's its own thing. And like you were saying, Ray, I don't know if I'd call it incredible. It's one of a kind, that's for sure, but it's like, yeah, it's hard to find the words for it. This thing is like, it's easy to talk about in the way that you can get lost in it, but it's really hard to talk about when you're trying to convey the information to someone, or talk about it on a platform like this, where um, like that. But it's it's fun to see that. I like, it's just cool to see that it has that big of an impact on the running world. Only 40 people run the race, but probably 40,000 people sit at home and talk about it, and talk about how crazy that race is, so it's really cool to see that, um, the running world presents a lot of cool victories in life. And that is definitely one of them that, I think people are going to continue to talk about for a long time, because there is so much and so little to talk about when it comes to that race. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
just imagine having that title under your belt that, you completed the Barkley Marathons. Like that's just it's like what you're saying. Like it's the same thing as climbing Everest in a way. Like it well, maybe I mean still I think it is. I know a lot of people do Everest now, but still like it's just such a huge accomplishment to even dream of in a way. And then you have some people making it reality, and that's just it's just yeah, it puts a smile on my face.
maybe we're all a little sadistic too, in that we're like, damn, you
Yeah,
love to see people just living in hell out there. the,
yeah,
the long distance running world is just full of a bunch of assholes that are.
Well, I mean, that kind of sums up the race because it puts a smile on Ray's face, and Trey's like, "Yeah, that's sadistic, and we love to see torture." Like that is the Barkley Marathons, and that's what makes it so special. Is depending on the angle that you look at it, is such a horrible form of torture, but also such an amazing thing for humans to be able to accomplish something like that. And so, yeah, we're struggling to put it even to words. And us three, we've known about the Barkley now for several years. I think Trey actually introduced me to the Barkley Marathons, and so I've been aware of it for 5, 6 years now. And even to talk to people who understand that race, it's still hard to put it into words because of how just unique it is. And there's definitely no other race on the planet like it. And that's why we knew we had to break this into 2 episodes, because I'm sure we're about at our normal episode length. So we're going to cut it right here. We're going to close it. So thank you for staying with us through the amazing journey of the Barkley Marathons episode. So that concludes episode number 11, part 1 of the Strike Twice podcast. And we'll see you guys next week.